Hello and welcome to Atop the Lightbulb, where bad lamps burn out. And after so much time was dedicated last year to revisiting past reviews, how could I not take a look at this, my most popular review, the Target $20 lamp? Alright, let's do this again and do it right this time. So, starting with this plastic shade.
Meanwhile, in an alternate universe...
Gallery of Horrors is a low-budget 1967 anthology horror movie starring John Carradine. It's also known as just Gallery of Horror, so I guess they couldn't decide if there was only one horror or a lot of them. As well as in the trailer advertising it as Dr. Terror's Gallery of Horror. What's funny is you could have called it Fat Grandma's Gallery of Horror and been just as accurate, because there is no Dr. Terror in this thing. And according to one user review on IMDb, they saw it when it was under the title Return from the Past. I suppose that's what we're doing right now, because who the hell in present year is talking about Gallery of Horrors? The IMDb trivia contains such interesting factoids like, it has 5 segments! How is it trivia when it's just the movie? It was produced by American General Pictures, which among its 12 films mostly focused on horror, fantasy, and sci-fi, with such titles as Barracuda, Journey to the Center of Time, and Spider Baby? Okay, now I think they're just getting a little ridiculous with these Spider-Man reboot movies. The title of that one is also called Spider Baby, or The Maddest Story Ever Told. Sounds better than some of the stories I've had to read. Anyway, that movie also featured an actor you might have heard of, Lon Chaney Jr., who also happens to be in Gallery of Horrors too. Lon Chaney Jr. is of course famous for the role he played so many times, Chingachgook from Hawkeye and Last of the Mohicans. And no other roles ever.
I train to Mondofina.
So naturally, in something called Gallery of Horrors, we start out in an art gallery. And by art gallery, I mean a black wall with a fog machine and the lighting tinted red and purple. But hey, at least the on-screen title confirms there's only one horror in it. Seems accurate. And at one point, they really get the horror going by tinting the fog green. Will the horror never stop? I hate it when they can't even keep the fog color consistent. Those stupid Cool guys. I'm just here for the parody of Phelous. I'm here because this is a horror review! Anyway, let's meet our narrator for the anthology, Dr. John Carradine.
All down through the ages, certain people have been said to possess certain strange, magical, mysterious powers.
My power is to stand next to a shot of a castle first shown in Pit and the Pendulum. I do love how he's in front of a blue screen, but the castle shot is superimposed over him. Anyway, for 2 minutes he talks about how over the years people blamed curses and witches for bad things happening, and at one point a real witch got burned.
Let me tell you the story of the witch's clock.
And by that I mean we're just gonna wait here until we cut back to me while the anthology segment plays. Cool.
This is your last chance, Mrs. Farrell. Are you still willing to relinquish the modern Manhattan apartment for Massachusetts?
Yeah, sure, I changed my mind. Let's go back to New York. Oh, well, there was a spooky witch's clock in there, but I guess I won't encounter it. Never mind. No, of course, we've just got a couple. Mystery writer Bob and interior designer Julie Farrell, who have bought a castle. Well, I call it a castle because the stone walls imply it is, but the outside always shows a mansion. And they've never bothered to actually check out the place they bought, because they make smart decisions.
Is there a dungeon?
Always good to ask when buying a new house if it has a dungeon.
You see? Nothing but a bunch of 16th century lumber and rags.
You always know just what to say to me, honey.
It's just junk, Julie.
Yeah, it's not like you could sell authentic antiques from your old stone castle house and make some money. Might as well just throw all that on the fire.
I found something.
What is it?
It looks like a grandfather clock.
Yeah, that looks like crap too. Toss that in while you're at it.
I've never seen a clock like that before.
Clocks with hands on it, no digital display. It's so weird. They move the clock into the main hall and Julie asks Bob to fix it.
Can't it wait? We got a lot to do and I'm getting hungry.
Good thing they crossfaded there into the same shot. I wouldn't have believed if he had tried to fix the clock right then. Not while he's hungry!
Doesn't seem to be any way to open it, Julie. I guess I'll have to break it open.
I'm going into acting overdrive. They get the clock working. Not that it sounds like a grandfather clock ticking, but whatever.
Gotcha. There.
Oh man, I just love repairing clocks at midnight. It's a good thing we didn't have anything else to do today. They hear a knock at the door and open it up. Hello, as the narrator, I've realized that this segment is actually pretty dumb, and I think we should skip it. Now, you might be thinking that maybe John Carradine is in all the segments, which would help explain why he's telling the stories in all these, but nope, he's only in this one. Anyway, he's actually playing a man named Tristram Halbin. He came to see some other people who were supposed to be here, named the Mailers, but the Farrells say no one else has lived in the castle for 5 years. They put him up for the night since there's a storm outside. A really windy storm that has no rain. And later we see Bob working on a typewriter when the local doctor comes to visit. As they do.
There's a lot to write about around here. Got a couple of story ideas myself. I'd like to tell you about them sometime.
Yeah, but I've been working on this new project called All Work and No Play Makes Jack a Dull Boy. I finished like 12 chapters already. But no, being a mystery novelist, naturally, he's writing a feature article about witchcraft in New England for a magazine. I trust you can figure out how those two things connect.
There's a lot of it around here. Plenty of burnings. There's a regular witch court out there. Got rid of a lot of old bags.
That's great. Thanks for sharing.
You didn't like your mother-in-law? Spread the word she's a witch. Before you knew it, poof, no more problems. Those were the good old days, some say.
Isn't it great talking about the murder of innocent people? The doctor tells him about Lucy Mailer, the only real witch who was burned.
Lucy Mailer had powers. Not witch powers, mind you, but magical powers.
Oh man, that's a good thing. Imagine if a witch had magical powers. He tells Bob that she enchanted the clock with powers to bring back the dead. So naturally, no one in 200 years has tried to burn it down or hit it with an axe or bury it or anything. Especially when the clock's powers only seemed to work when it was activated. Lucy Mailer was supposed to have been buried with her friends and family in a tomb in the dungeon, so Bob goes to investigate.
Tristram Halbin.
Da-da-da-da. You mean the weirdo in old-timey clothes who showed up out of nowhere without any way of arriving and no bags and was expecting to see another family there despite no one living there for 5 years isn't trustworthy? This is why you don't listen to zombies. Then we get a weird transition with a spiral effect into Tristram hypnotizing Julie in front of the clock. Did they just get here while he was in the tomb? Why the random spiral? Shouldn't we have just crossfaded to Bob still in the tomb, but a few hours later? Anyway, Tristram is trying to get her to leave Bob, but he shows up, says he knows the truth, and tries to destroy the clock. I guess it was booby-trapped or something, because suddenly everything lights on fire, and they die. Well, I guess that's why no one tried to destroy the clock in that amount of time. Lucy Mailer set bombs up everywhere if you screw with it. But I guess this place has the same problem as the Amityville house, because despite showing it burning down, one page flip transition and the house is back up with 2 new people buying it and starting up the clock again.
I'm afraid you didn't hear my knock. I'm looking for the Mailer family.
It turns out they weren't the Mailer family and they just kicked me out, foiling my evil plans. So why did Lucy set up her evil non-witch clock in The Witch's Clock to resurrect Tristram and not herself? The next story is King Vampire. Yeah, I wouldn't want to have John Carradine in any story about vampires. That'd be stupid. Just put him as a random old zombie hypnotist in a story about an evil clock that's not really about the clock. Some policemen watch as the 13th victim of murder is wheeled out right outside the homicide department. You think maybe that should have been sent to a hospital instead of the police station? Nah, I'm sure it's fine. The two talk about how no one can figure out the motive for the killings, nor is there any pattern, but the newspapers have called the killer King Vampire. Little quick to assume that the vampire is a king. Why not just some random peasant vampire?
Obviously dealing with a madman.
But this murder is worse than a madman. He's shockingly sane.
Only the sanest of serial killers make puncture wounds on the neck.
It's almost as though he knows every move before we do.
I'm assuming he meant to say every move we make before we do, but even then, what moves are you guys making that he's predicting other than bringing dead bodies to the police station?
You know, all of London's in a turmoil about these murders.
Wait, are they supposed to be British?
Well, all I can say is we had better get cracking and catch this King Vampire fellow.
But you take care. They're a rough lot.
Holy crap, they're not even trying to put on fake British accents. I say, dear fellows, this sure is a sticky wicket. Best be off, pip pip cheerio, to have some bangers and mash in Gloucestershire. We're in England. Detective I'm Totally British goes to the area of the last murder to try to get some info, but apparently it's populated by criminals who hate policemen. Don't judge them too harshly, though. They're at least trying to fake accents.
We don't like strangers around here. Who are you? My name is John Brenner and I'm a detective.
Oi, we don't like Americans pretending to be British people either. What? I'm as British as anyone, righto. Take the lift to the car park, eh, what? They say he can look around, but he won't find anything.
Now tell me, who here has seen the face of the murderer? Who can tell me what he looks like?
John Brenner, the greatest Scotland Yard detective. One of the guys there says he saw King Vampire.
All dressed in black, like an undertaker he is, with his hat all pulled down over his face. No, oh, he's a terrible sight, he is, that's for sure.
Can't be any more terrible a sight than the rest of this movie. Seriously, guys, who was the cinematographer who said, yeah, let's make every shot last like a minute at a time without moving the camera, and just have everyone sit or stand around and talk without any music or things happening? Gallery of Horror! Maybe the thought process was that paintings don't move, so they had to make sure every shot lingers way too long.
And he was brave enough to step forward. Why are you afraid? Tell me, who has seen the face of the vampire?
Damn it, if only there were more than just the 4 people next to me in this purgatory. We do actually get a moment with music and kind of some suspense, as this one woman describes seeing the face of the vampire.
I've seen many a dead one, sir, and all have had more life in the flesh than the vampire.
Wasn't much, but at least she was actually trying. I can only hope Brenner's reaction can match the intensity she was going for.
And I promise I'll do my best to rid London of this monster.
You've got nothing to fear now that I'm on the case, ma'am. My acting is giving it its all. Then after Brenner tells all this to the other detective and his secretary, King Vampire goes and murders the old woman. It's a good thing King Vampire did that before she told anybody, especially when her description was as accurate as, look for someone who resembles a corpse. Spoilers, King Vampire doesn't look like a corpse. After finding the body, the guy who said he saw King Vampire says the people in the area won't help them, considering how crappy a job they did with the old lady.
Listen, she'd be alive right now if you fools would get out of your shells and go after this monster. We can't do it alone. We need your help.
I mean, what do you think we are, the police or something? The crowd claims they've already found King Vampire. And then they just randomly grab this guy off the street and say it's him. Random citizen, the greatest not Scotland Yard detective. That guy they grabbed looks kind of familiar. Well, with that top hat and cape and white gloves and bow tie. Oh, he looks like Halloweeny! What is wrong with you? He clearly looks like Moata! He looks exactly like me. They find a bloodstain on his glove, but he claims he killed a mad dog.
You're not only a murdering vampire, but you're a sniveling coward.
Truly his greatest crime. They hold the two cops at knife point while they murder the person, then run off without the cops trying to pursue them. They're the best!
Well, now we'll never know whether that was the man we were really after. There have been 3 more murders since that man was beaten to death.
Damn it, if only there was some way of knowing if that was King Vampire. Brenner thinks maybe it was a woman who did it, but Inspector Detective says that's just impossible.
Oh, by the way, I dropped by to tell you that I've been reassigned to another case. I'm afraid I have to leave you.
Yes, these new cops I'm working with seem like good fellows.
We think we're dealing with a supernatural being, most likely a mummy.
Yeah, 17 people dead and I'm just casually being reassigned. That's just how it is here in London. So anyway, it turns out King Vampire was Inspector Detective's secretary, who kills him for no reason. Well, that story was just stupid. Alright, time once again for John Carradine to wow us with his performance in this gallery of horror.
In the days when zombies, werewolves, and other monsters roamed wild, stalking their victims over the face of the earth.
Want to give us a year when that happened, John? He narrates about a scientist who wanted to rid the world of those zombies, werewolves, and other monsters through a serum that would cure them. Naturally, none of that has to do with the next segment, called The Monster Raid. It starts out with a guy named Desmond talking to his master in a tomb.
Good old Desmond. I knew I could rely on you to help me.
Getting a surprising amount of reverb from inside that box. Admittedly, the corpse makeup is pretty decent for this one. The corpse is Dr. Charles Spaulding, who was murdered by his wife Helen and his assistant, Dr. Savard. Spaulding is actually played by Ron Doyle, who was Brenner from the last segment, while Savard is played by Roger Gentry, who was Bob in the first segment. So they were okay with reusing actors between segments, but they still just kept John Carradine to just the narration and one small part in Witch's Clock. Savard was having an affair with Helen while Spaulding was too busy with his work. No doubt trying to figure out the perfect combination of 11 herbs and spices. During an experiment, Charles wants to use Savard as a human guinea pig.
What about Desmond? No, not Desmond.
Well, fair enough, I guess.
I did not realize then why James didn't wish me to use my formula on him.
Yeah, it's almost like he didn't want to be the first test subject for something radically weird and potentially harmful. What an idiot! Desmond tells Spaulding about the affair.
Desmond, you've been loyal to me for many years.
But I'm afraid I can't afford your paycheck anymore. You're fired. What? Anyway, Spaulding does his experiment on himself, but Savard reconcentrated the formula, so it was too strong and it kills him. However, the formula kept most of his internal organs functioning despite his outer body decaying, which doesn't seem to be great for his revenge since Desmond needs to drag him around like this. But hey, he is able to move around eventually and advance menacingly on them without us ever seeing him kill them. Anyway, to make a long story short, Spaulding killed them. Hey, John, you ever want to have a different image next to you? Hell, even just a different castle? No, just use the same one every time we cut to you? Okay. Fourth up is The Spark of Life, which finally brings us Lon Chaney Jr. And according to John Carradine, this one's in Scotland.
Let us turn now to the Scotland of the mid-1800s.
It was important for us to know that it took place in Scotland, what with how no one in this one speaks with a Scottish accent either. Oh, well, clearly I was wrong, because Brenner's back again, and he's as British as apple pie. Lon Chaney Jr. plays a science professor answering some questions from his students.
Had a colleague at Hamburg University. Well, all I know is that he said he could bring the dead to life with electricity.
Did he succeed?
Because I've been trying to bring myself back to life using a serum, but it kind of rots my flesh. His colleague from Hamburg was actually Dr. Frankenstein, who got kicked out of the university for his experiments and his research was destroyed.
But wait, I'll show you how Dr. Frankenstein started all these theories.
Yeah, his work was really controversial and got him to lose his job, but let me show you how it was supposed to work. He gets called away after demonstrating some electricity on a corpse, but he tells the two students to stick around.
On the question, life is electrical by nature, but is electricity life?
Well, considering you can get fried with enough electricity zapped into you, that's probably a no.
Well, that was all pretty dull.
A movie like this has no right to call anything else dull. They decide on a whim to try to bring the cadaver back to life and tell him about their plan to resurrect the dead.
What did you say? How did you think of such a thing?
How did you even conceive that after I just told you about Frankenstein's theories and the idea of electricity being life? Janie decides to help them.
A chance to prove my theory.
Thank you for that.
Get this, he just brings in a piece of equipment, hooks it up to the corpse, activates it, and boom, he's alive again! Why did you need these students to help prove your theories when you already have a machine that can bring the dead back to life? What was he even doing with that thing before now?
I've been using it to make hot chocolate.
Oh, and hey, the corpse is Desmond! Now Spaulding and Desmond can resume where they left off. Or not, because after he shuts the machine off, he just falls down again.
That was just an electrical charge to the muscles.
Yeah, most electrical charges to dead bodies will get them to sit up, open their eyes, and start groaning. That's just hard science right there. After a high enough dose of electricity, the corpse does indeed come to life.
You can't possibly be alive.
But I am.
But we already harvested your organs! Uh-oh! Turns out his name is Amos Duncan, a murderer who was executed.
But now I shall have my revenge.
Just gonna go over here now while, you talk about your murderous revenge. Brenner says they have to kill him because of both the risks to their careers with this experiment, the experiment they wanted to do in the first place, but also because of how dangerous he is.
That'd be murder.
He's just an experiment, nothing more.
I can hear you. We're still in the same room and you're not even whispering. Shut up, you're just an experiment! None of them want to do the job, so Brenner spins a knife to determine who does it, landing on Cheney.
I know you want to be left alone.
Yeah, it's just a murderer who was brought back to life and wants to take revenge. I'm sure the 60-year-old man with a heart condition can take him. And what a surprise! He couldn't. Here, let me make this John Carradine segment a little more tolerable.
Night train to the end.
Anyway, time for our final segment. Count Dracula.
Count Alucard.
Oh, I guess it's Alucard, except for the end credits and the DVD box which call it Count Dracula. I'd complain more about that, but this movie can't even decide what its own title is. So it begins similar to how the story usually goes, with Jonathan Harker going to Dracula's castle.
Count's castle, Herr Harker. I regret I cannot fulfill your request with such eagerness, Herr Harker.
I guess the coachman is from the New Jersey region of Transylvania. Also, it's weird how they look different in the wide shot, almost as if it was reused footage from something else. And yep, Roger Gentry back again playing Jonathan Harker. What, you didn't want to get Brenner's actor back again for this? Gentry doesn't have nearly as good a British accent. Dracula feeds him, and they talk about his family history, suggesting a link to Vlad the Impaler and all that.
Much blood was lost to the invader. Precious blood.
You speak almost as if you were there yourself.
I'm not a vampire! Or maybe I am. I don't know. Who cares? Later, a terrible bat picture is superimposed over the Corman Castle, truly showing off Dracula's power. After a woman tries and fails to bite Jonathan in bed, I don't know why that's a problem. That's just Julie telling Bob that they need to move back to Massachusetts. The villagers arrive with torches and pitchforks. And I suppose when you've only got 20 minutes to do all of a classic horror story, you've really got to speed things up. The town burgermeister apparently doesn't know how to knock because he just goes into the castle and says that the woman who tried to bite Jonathan attacked a child and are chasing after her.
Jonathan, bring a torch. I'll be more than happy to.
Why do I get the feeling this isn't the first time he's had to chase after a woman with a torch? So, I guess I'll just stay here. They look for her in a graveyard amidst some stock footage that looks considerably better because the camera's actually moving, but she manages to kill one of the townspeople.
Good Lord, it's Hans. He's dead.
I'm really broken up about it, you can tell from my voice. They find her in a crypt and Harker reveals he knows about vampires since his family was killed by them.
My loved ones were killed by a menace such as this. This is my revenge.
That's it.
Oh, I guess it wasn't her that they staked, just some other random vampire, especially since she comes by later.
Medina, you a vampire?
But how could you be a vampire after you tried to bite my neck earlier? Anyway, great Count Dracula story, guys. Or maybe that woman in the coffin was supposed to be Count Alucard and it wasn't a wrong title. Now, of course, Harker goes back to the castle and tells Dracula that he needs to still take out the vampire who turned those two women. Dracula himself. Oh man, but how can he stop Dracula Alucard?
I won't let you drain this village of its blood. I need it for myself.
A werewolf!
You are all weirdos. Ugh.
And I guess John Carradine decided he didn't need to wrap anything up, so roll credits. More like Gallery of Horrible, am I right? Ooh, burn! Ugh. Witch's clock just ends randomly before it can even get started. King Vampire is ridiculous and the main characters don't even try to pretend they're acting as anything but atrocious. Monster Raid is okay for the most part, but nothing special. The spark of life is saved only by Lon Chaney Jr.'s acting, otherwise it's pretty pedestrian. And Count Dracula doesn't seem to realize it's supposed to be about Dracula. Also, Jonathan Harker is a werewolf, I guess. Decent twist idea, but it's not foreshadowed or set up, so it just comes off as random. The acting in all the segments ranges from decent to terrible, and the scripts are overall just pretty lame. John Carradine's introductions of the stories are long, rambly, repetitive, and often have nothing to do with what actually happens in the stories. What makes it especially so boring is how little the cinematography is used. Some of the sets are quite nice, especially in a gothic 60s horror movie kind of vibe, but the camera sits motionless for long stretches of time just to have characters talk to each other, and maybe there's a little music if you're lucky. None of the stories are scary in the slightest, and the weird transition effects exist just to hide a lack of special effects for even the most basic of things like blood. It might be okay for a bad movie night, but expect to see long stretches of nothing.
Hello, Linkara! I'm back again!
Linkara D1, you're back again!
That's what I just said.
But how? You were killed!
I used a magic potion to return to life.
You used witchcraft?
What? Not witchcraft, magic!
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And now it's time to finally put an end to you!
Well, you won't be able to, because I'm gonna reveal my hidden form! I'm secretly a werewolf!
This is just awkward.
Yeah.
So, got anything else?
Yeah, I've got a shotgun! Now I guess we'll never know who was King D1.
You're wrong, Linkara. It was me!
And that's the story of how Linkara D1 and all of his witchy powers fell. But stories of the past do convey one important lesson, honey children. Fat Grandma is your day and your night. So eat your flapjacks, or else you're gonna get a smack on your sassy mouth. This has been Fat Grandma's Gallery of Horror. Oh no, the fog machine's going crazy.
Welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where that comic burn. Linkara was gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. Brodsky, you're not the smartest. Liefeld, you're not an artist. Anyone without a bad comic published, it could be your turn. Linkara, the man punch was a pretty hot Linkara. He has a magic gun where he punches that Linkara. Coins, robots, Amazon and trucks, Linkara. This comic sucks, Linkara.
Arbor Day! What? April Fools! Arbor Day was funnier.